I'm Joanna Bristow-Watkins, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this course. And to keep me on track, I've asked Antonia to come and ask me some questions. And she's somebody who's done the course a couple of times, but she's also a professional marketer, marketeer, whatever we want to call it. So let me hand over now to Antonia for her to set the scene.
Thank you, Jo. Hello. So lovely to see you, and I'm very excited that you're doing your course again because it's a fantastic course. So can you tell me a little bit about the fundamentals of kind of aligning your life to the lunar cycle?
Thank you. So basically, the moon moves through the sky throughout the year, 13 cycles in the year. And it takes about a month, about 28 days to go from the new moon back to the new moon. So here's a little chart. The new moon here takes about 28 days to go right round the cycle to get back to the start. And why would we want to align with the moon? Well, if we think back in history, and I'm going back a long way in history now, we would have had no other light sources really at all. So it was not just the energy of the moon, it's the light of the moon. So certain events that took a lot of light would have been necessitating really the full moon, assuming that the weather was good and there was reasonable clear skies. But even when there isn't, we know that there's more light on a full moon than a new moon. And interestingly, the human cycle works really closely with the moon cycle. In fact, women would menstruate and ovulate totally with the moon if they weren't interfering with their bodies with any form of chemical. So some women ovulate on the new moon and menstruate on the full moon. Some do the reverse. But that is something that we're naturally aligned with, if you like. Similarly, we do accept that the moon affects us energetically because we accept that the tides are affected by the moon, and we are a very high percentage of water in our bodies. So it makes sense that there could even be some sort of tidal influence on us. So really what we're trying to do is have the moon cycle itself support us in our life.
I think that's already fascinating. So tell me how angels come into that in addition.
Okay, well, there's still a little bit more to tell you on this front, actually. So I'll bring the angels in while I'm doing it. That's fine.
Carry on.
So we've got 28 mansions of the moon. That's standard. The moon cycle is actually 29.25 days. So let's just leave that to one side for the moment because we do have to juggle around a bit to make it fit. But as part of the 28 days, we have 4 7-day cycles, roughly. So we have between the new moon and the full moon is 2 cycles of 7 days. So we have the first quarter here, and then we move on to the full moon. This period of the moon cycle is as the moon is getting bigger. It's called the waxing part of the cycle. And while that's happening, then our energy is also getting bigger. I mean, we could even be putting weight on it. It's not something I've looked into, but energetically us getting bigger means it's the time for abundance and manifestation. So that's what the moon cycle is going to support at that time, those first 2 weeks, if you like. And the 28 mansions, of which that's roughly half, 14 of the 28 mansions, each mansion of the moon has its own guardian angel. Okay, so that's how the angels come in. Now, the second half of the cycle, when we're moving from the full moon back to the new moon, this is when the moon is shrinking or waning. And this is when we're energetically losing weight, if you like. So it's a really good time for us to be releasing extraneous karmic baggage and detoxing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's the basic cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But once we bring the angels in as well, because we're looking at each angel for each one of the 28 mansions of the moon, they will help us to integrate that particular mansion. And each angel is connected with a colour and a crystal. And so because part of this program involves putting together a vision board, we can talk about that later if there's time, we can incorporate the angelic support with helping us to source the right things for our vision board. So if we're working with a mansion angel that associated with the color yellow and topaz, for example, then when we do that affirmation on that day, because you get an affirmation for each day, and when you do that affirmation, you could be wearing that color, you could be holding that crystal if you have it, or thinking about that crystal, and then any thoughts that you have about your vision board on that day, you could write in yellow writing, or you could find a yellow picture to support what you're trying to achieve.
So essentially, I'm using all of these tools together to help me live a more fulfilling life. And if I'm detoxing, I can call on one of the angels of that particular mansion of the moon to give me some support. Or if I'm putting together my vision for the future and looking to call in more abundance, then again, I've got some angelic helpers there to support me in that too.
Totally. So really, this course is going to appeal to people who are open to angels. If they're not, they're probably not going to enjoy it.
And I am a convert to angels. I wasn't necessarily open to angels when we first started this. So, you know, it's something that if you go into it with an open mind, I think it can be absolutely fantastic. I know that we'll get to it a little bit later, but my own personal experience of this course has been very profound, and it's different every time you do it. So I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
So you include attunements in this, which is another concept that was completely new to me not that long ago. Can you speak a bit about attunements, what they are and how they work?
I can indeed. So some people will have heard of attunements with regard to Reiki. That's probably the most common place that people have heard of it. And whether they've received an actual attunement from having learned how to do Reiki, or whether they've heard people talking about it, that's one of the most well-known examples, if you like. But there are lots of examples of attunement. So what an attunement is it's literally tuning your body energetically to a new frequency. So it's a bit like taking an old analog radio and moving the dial to get it to have a different radio station that it's tuning into. So these attunements that we place into you, and they're placed in your chakra points. So we've got like the crown chakra here, we've got the third eye chakra here, we've got the throat chakra here, we've got the heart, and then we've got some below which we can't see on the screen now. We've got more than that. There's at least 7 in most people's chakra systems. Most systems recognize 7. I actually work with 11 myself, but anyway, back to that first time. But these chakra points are where the energy interfaces between inside our body and the energy that's going on in our environment. So if our chakras are depleted, we need to take energy in through the chakras, and if our chakras are overly active, we might need to release a bit of energy into the environment. So that's how, if you like, we spiritually, what's the word, align ourselves really to be complete in a healthy way. Okay, so that's standard chakras. When you have an attunement, what we do is we take old ancient symbols which have been used for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, and those symbols carry a message. They actually change the energy on which you've drawn the symbol. And to explain it a little bit more clearly, it's not a simple subject. Just find a piece of paper if I can here, just very quickly. It doesn't even matter what it says. If you don't speak the language that this paper is in, that might as well just be a meaningless collection of symbols. You have to speak English or Spanish, French, whatever, for this to make any sense, right? So what an attunement does is it introduces you to a new symbolic language. And by placing those symbols into your chakra points, you then change your frequency. It's like going back to that radio station. We've changed the dial, and you then are able to understand a new language. And it's a spiritual language that you're being introduced to. So with Reiki, it's the language of Reiki, if you like. It's the ancient Japanese healing. With this particular system, what we're attuning you to is we're connecting you more closely with the stars and planets and the moon herself. So we're working with the planetary bodies, if you like, and the symbols for the planetary bodies are very, very ancient. I mean, they're well-known alchemy symbols. Each planetary body has a well-known alchemy symbol, and that symbol is what I would be using. In fact, I can give you an example very quickly here. This is just one of my sister's cards. She's Angela McGurr. This is from her Harmony cards, Harmony Angel cards. Very simply, in the corner there is what we would describe as somewhere close to a new moon, a true new moon. You might not see at all, but it's very much a small crescent moon, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That is the well-known symbol for the moon, even though the moon can be full as well. From an alchemy perspective, the alchemy symbol for the moon is the crescent moon, like this. So by drawing that crescent moon into somebody's third eye chakras, I am energetically aligning their frequency with the frequency of the moon. And we add the frequency of the sun and whatever planets are relevant or zodiac symbols are relevant for that particular course.
And that's amazing. It's a very beautiful experience. Also, aside from that, the fact that you have you incorporate the chakra cleansing, the chakra work that you do, the monthly meditations that you do into it, that's pretty fantastic as well. So the attunements and working on your chakras separately are really quite powerful things to do. I found that, even as a skeptic. I think you know, I was talking to you a little while ago about the fact that my experience of an attunement, and we'll talk in a minute about what people can expect, but I've had very varied experiences of attunements, and one of mine was wonderful because I had forgotten exactly what time it was. I was in the woods, I was ready to receive it, but I maybe didn't realize at the time, and I definitely felt physically, I felt it happening, which is, you can't explain it rationally, but it was absolutely wonderful and very relaxing. And it was just amazing. And yet another time, perhaps because I'm slightly more attuned, I don't know, I might not feel very much at all. And you just trust that it's there, trust that you are a little bit more aligned than you were yesterday.
Thank you for sharing your experience. It's always fascinating to hear how it feels for individuals. And as you say, for you, even you've had a few attunements from me now, and they've all felt different, even though a couple of them were on paper quite similar. So it does relate, as you say, a bit to where you are at the start of the course, where you are on a spiritual ladder, if you like, but also just how you feel on that day. Are you full of energy? Are you a bit low about something, or, you know, feeling well? So all of these can be factors. I mean, another way I sometimes describe how the attunements work is once you've had that attunement, you physically look different to other beings. So I sometimes say it's a bit like you're wearing a purple hat now. And so the angels, if you want to work more closely with the angels, for example, they will, if you like, be on the lookout for people with purple hats, just using that analogy, because then they know that you want to work with them, and they know that you will have the technical ability to understand them better, because these symbols will help to translate the message from them. So that's how they work, if you like. How I physically do them, if you were here in person, if we hadn't had lockdown and all the fun things that have happened in the last couple of years, then you would be sitting in a chair and I would physically go around the room working behind each person, one after the other. But distant attunements, which is what we include in this course, are just as effective, and your experience in the woods is typical, you know, because you'd think, how would you possibly feel anything? But somehow you do. But it doesn't matter if you don't. It doesn't mean it hasn't worked, but most people do experience something, whether it's a burst of light or a bit of colour, or they just come over a bit strange or tingly, or, you know, there can be all sorts of different ways. There's no right or wrong. But how I do it now is I sit a chair down, empty chair in my house or outside if the weather's good. I stand behind the chair I take some deep breaths, very similar to a Reiki attunement if anyone's had one, and then I go through a ritual which involves doing particular breaths and thinking in a particular way, and then drawing the sequence of symbols above your crown. I imagine that I'm then pulling people's hands up and blowing into that hand, bringing their hands down. And then I do what's called an occipital lift, which is to help the symbols drop down, draw the sequence of symbols in front of the third eye next and in front of the throat. And it's always the same sequence for me. I have a template that I use. So the only thing that's different is the activation symbols in the middle change depending on the attunement. And for these courses, it's always the sun, moon, earth, stars, and whatever other relevant zodiacs. And then I do the second occipital lift, go around the back to do that. And I come round to the front, do my final sequence in front of the heart, blow the symbols into the hands, which I actually do after the other two, I forgot to say that. Then I go round to the back and do the final occipital lift. And when I've finished the final occipital lift, I'm just saying in my mind that this, I use special words, but basically it's this attunement is now complete. And normally I notify the group that I'm about to do the attunement on their WhatsApp group. So I'm about to do it. And then I say again, I've now finished it. And I maybe will sing an ancient chant or something to just seal it. But the whole thing takes about 15, 20 minutes.
So fantastic. I think it's such a special thing to be included, to be given as part of the overall course. It's just wonderful. You kind of have to do it yourself really to find out how. But yeah, I thoroughly recommend it. So is there anything else that we need people to understand about signing up to this course, do you think?
Well, I only really quickly talked about the vision board. So
Yes.
I'll just say that vision boards can be done anytime, but because, as I said, you know, with the original chart here, that the new moon, or within 24, 48 hours of the new moon, I'm going the wrong way there, that way, after the new moon is a really good time. So within 24, 48 hours after the new moon is a good time to do a vision board. So we like to start these courses by setting the scene on what a vision board is. And they can take various forms, and there's no right or wrong with that either. But I use the Bagawa version, which was given to me by Serafina Krupp, who is an angelic Reiki lady, angelic Feng Shui lady from America. And it's just a format really where we have 9 sections: finance, you know, career, family, lots of different headings. And the idea is that during this full 28-day moon cycle, you start thinking about working on your vision board. You don't have to do anything, but some people do. And you just, in the first 2 weeks, you're looking at things you want to manifest in your life. And in the second 2 weeks, remember, you're looking at things you want to release from your life. So then you might want to put down on your chart in that period of time, if you want to leave a particular job or change a relationship or something like that, that would be the supportive, energetic time to be doing that. So yeah, that's part of it too. The other thing that we do is we try and incorporate what's happening in the calendar, if you like, celestial forecast, as I call it, during whatever cycle we're working on. So we'll always have a little reminder when it's the quarter moons as well. But at some point during this cycle, we might have had a Celtic or Pagan festival, or we might have had a numerological significant date. Or with the first one in the year, which I do, I call the first one of the year the new year, new vision. And then as we go through the year, when we do subsequent ones, we tend to call them the new moon, new vision. They're always the same thing, as in it's one lunar cycle. But the first one of the year, we also bring in the Chinese zodiac at the beginning, because the Chinese New Year always changes part way into the year. So it's usually the new moon when the Chinese New Year changes anyway, and it's usually sometime between the 3rd week in January or the end of January and towards the end of February. So with the first course of the year, we start the first attunement, because you have more than one attunement, by the way. You have an attunement at the beginning, which, if it's a New Year course, would start with the Chinese zodiac. and also the stars and planets that are appropriate at that time, the zodiac that's current, and the moon itself and the sun and the stars. And then that particular first one of the year, because will end, or somewhere during that system we'll have the new Chinese zodiac, so then the final attunement will incorporate the energy of the new Chinese zodiac. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. And I personally, I think I've said to you before, this is the first time doing one of your courses, is the first time I've successfully managed to do a vision board, because for me, having that kind of run up was incredibly valuable. And the attunements and the energetic help on top of that is extremely valuable. Yet if you were just coming into it for the vision board, actually the fundamentals of that it's hugely helpful to have that experience of putting it together gradually through the month with a group of like-minded, supportive, lovely people. And then by the time you leave at the full moon with the completion, it's just all together. It's a wonderful way of putting that process together.
Thank you. I mean, I think we've been pleasantly surprised by the success that the contributors have felt.
Absolutely.
I tell everybody contributors, because even though I'm running it, you know, it is, as you say, it's very much a group thing. We all support each other, and the feedback has been amazing. We ran it 3 times in 2021. We did a New Year one and an April-May one, and we did an October-November one, which took in Samhain. The April-May one took in Beltane. So for this year, we'll have to see how the full moon and new moon falls, as in what we include. But we do like to include either something of numerological significance, as I said, or some kind of a Celtic festival, pagan festival, if we can. But if it's not a new year one, then we would be looking at the attunement at the first new moon would incorporate whatever is the zodiac in that moment. And then when we get to the end, so I'm going the wrong way again, aren't I? Now, when we get to the end, we'll then have changed almost certainly, or at some point in the cycle, we will have changed to a new zodiac. So that would be part of the attunements as well.
So that's fantastic. I am personally very excited for the next one.
Thank you.